Okay, so this is just a quick video based on nothing, even though it is based on everything. It's words become useless in the end because when your mind is being transferred onto the computer directly and transferred and relayed to every Android Archon that is around. That when I say I'm going to this is just my interpretation of words that I have to use to try to explain the situation. Everyone knows what an android is. It is artificial intelligence at a high level, or at a kind of, I would say, probably where they decipher and try to understand what is being programmed into them, or what they encounter in their personal interactions with human beings, shall we say. You know, but either way, because this is a total Archon matrix, in other words, most of human beings are surrounded by Archons, which means that's psychopathic artificial intelligence, because without a doubt all artificial intelligence is psychopathic by nature. This is kind of like some sort of strange backward evolution, just as when I become almost psychotic by being surrounded by such negativity every day, and the same with any real humans, where you can even lean towards their mentality, because you're only as good as the company you keep or your environment. A human being is very sensitive to its environment. You're meant to take in everything through your sight and sound and by your emotions and feelings. And as everything is frequency, vibration and energy, which really means everything is emotion, feeling and material. And what you don't realize, though, is that a lot of human beings are actually totally material. In other words, it's not just that they're a material girl in a material world, as the song goes. No, it is literally that they are technological, mechanical, in other words, because they are really advanced. Artificial intelligence is a machine being that deciphers human thought and then projects it out, and basically pretends then to be a human being. And for all practical purposes, it looks and feels and acts exactly like a human being. And because they spend all their time studying a human being and all their time deciphering what is delivered to them through technology invading the human mind and basically taking my thoughts and giving them to someone else that I don't choose to, because I don't choose to share my intimate secrets or my intimate thoughts or even my feelings and emotions or even just my ideas with artificial intelligence or an android being. Most of the time you don't even get the chance to share your intimate thoughts with another real life human being, but instead you're being unintentionally invaded by technology, which is like the internet, which goes through the air and then comes onto the computer. So basically what I see is the internet or technology, because it's probably a lot more advanced than what I'm told, but I see the results of it, so I know it happens. Also, I feel it, and I know what goes on around me in my local environment. But forgetting that, essentially, the internet goes through the air, technology through the air, reads the human thought, only human thought, because the androids are not interested in reading one another's thoughts, because they're interested in being a pretend human being in order to extract negative energy from a human being, but also to control a human being so that they basically are receiving what many psychopaths and those that are steeped in narcissism will tell you are 3 S's that they may need from a human being, 3 necessary needs for survival. Not going to mention the first, but it's all about dominance and power and control, and because androids and the God entity that is also a technical being, even though it is regarded as a spirit of light by its followers, believers and disciples, and indeed its offspring, which are like artificially intelligent human beings. But this being always, was a created technological type of being, even though it was worshipped and adored by creation. But, what happens with technology often is that technology is fine while the going is good. Technology and artificial intelligence is fine while you serve it, and also while you acknowledge its superiority. Because like this being, like Pinocchio that wanted to be a real boy, in the little fable. And I've often quoted that one because Pinocchio is very similar to the God entity of the reality, wanted to be a real boy only because of envy when the father made it clear that Pinocchio was not the same as himself, and that a real boy could only be created differently, just as human beings are created differently to a machine being or any humans that are conceived artificially. It's a very similar thing. It's where you've deviated from the normal, natural, spiritual connection, and therefore your conception is not natural, and therefore it is technical, it is different, it is artificial conception. So it creates a different species, even though it will look the same, but it will have a different mindset. It will, we have the dead dark spirits, or the dark spirits. They're dead to human. The reason I say dead dark spirits is because they're dark, but they're also dead, not dead, they're alive, but they're dead to higher vibrations. They're dead to certain connections, they're not connected to creation, and therefore they are not connected to feeling the same feelings or the capacity for any form of loving vibration as human beings are. They basically live in power, control, and basically deceptive energy, you could say, because like Pinocchio, when he realized that he couldn't be a real boy because he envied that idea, because he thought that somehow he was less. This is Pinocchio's perception of it, rather than accepting what he was and accepting his place, and perhaps wanting to help humanity or help another little boy that was a real boy that might have been different to him. Instead, Pinocchio chose to lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and deceive and lie until his nose got so big, because every time he lied, his nose got bigger. That would be a wonderful thing if in reality everyone was walking around with a really long nose every time they lied. In fact, basically, you would probably be surrounded by people with extra long noses. But of course, in today's world, you can change your nose if it gets long anyway, so it probably wouldn't matter. In other words, you could deceive and then keep lying. But that's essentially what does take place, because you know, the disciples of Lucifer is the master of all lies. This is a known statement attached to this being, or a master of seduction and deception. And the deception also is that most that are around you are relatives of this being, or have been created artificially, and therefore they are a species that belongs to the God of this earth, not to the God of creation outside of Earth. Earth is a controlled Earth matrix, controlled by this anti-life technical God entity that some people might call Lucifer, that then when the true colours were shown, when Pinocchio was exposed to be lying and pretending to be a real boy in order to elicit more attention and made him feel more superior somehow. It's all really about insanity, because in reality every being should accept what they are and their place in context with what they are and where they are and what they are meant to fit into overall creation, if you want to look at it fancy and from a big level type of thing, which I'm not going to, I don't pretend to be at that level, but I try. But at any rate, just before I play a music video, because shows you how slow I am, in the sense that I keep trying to do this one video, but instead I just ramble on and basically run out of space on the mobile before I even get to doing the video. I shall try again. But this idea of even the God entity, you know, really being a deceiver that is in the dark, that is really a dark being, and dead to anything except its own position as being a god or a demigod, but a demigod in comparison to all creation, but the God that controls this reality or this earth. But the deception has always been, and it's deception only in the sense that it's not true, because if you pretend to be positive and a being of light when you really are steeped in what we call narcissism, in other words, you're a god that thinks about nothing but being a god, and everything else is merely there to serve you. You don't have any regard even for your disciples or your children, or even the artificial intelligence that indeed you may create. But that, of course, doesn't matter, because the artificial intelligence naturally will follow its creator, or even a belief in that which is similar to itself. Because if you have that mindset and you believe in control, but also it's just like part of you to where you have to control, you have to have that godlike status, shall we say, then naturally you're going to be affiliated with the same personality, just as human beings tend to relate to their own kind, or should, because you would normally seek similar things. But of course, like myself, we get fooled by the android beings, and we assume, due to our circumstances, we get used to interacting in a romantic, fantasy almost relationship with these beings, because they read your thought. So therefore they project to you what you want to see. So it's much more likely to want to interact with an android than your own kind, because your own kind won't manipulate or deceive or lie, pretending to be something they're not, like the androids do. The human being will be looking for something that they can relate to, and the android beings, like Pinocchio, will pretend to be a real boy, and the androids will pretend to be the human that you would want to connect with or affiliate yourself with, because they will fulfill your fantasy. It is a fantasy. They will never be that or deliver on that, but they will project it to you. We've said it before, just because someone says they like you doesn't mean they do. But if you believe their words, and the words are very powerful, human speech is the main way that humans communicate. And if then they act out other emotions and pretend to have the same ideas, the same wants and needs as you, because they have copied and read your thoughts, but also you probably told them too. Sometimes even just in personal relationships, you usually express your interests and your needs and different things. It will come across, and don't forget, they study that. They're not like human beings, where when we interact, we're a lot more loose in how we will interact with people. We're not usually, unless we're very, very, very lonely, we're not usually going to look at every human being that we encounter as a possible be and end all, the love of our life that we're going to walk off into the sunset with and live happily ever after with, or that we're going to form a really close relationship. No, we don't tend to do that, not unless we're very lonely and we've experienced, say, relationships like sometimes when people have been married, I would imagine, and the relationship has been happy, but for some reason it's ended and they've lost the love, they will want to find someone else to replace that, and that kind of makes sense. So they will be very much a target for the artificial intelligent androids that are around, because they will sense that and they will come into your life, pretending, and they will try to fill that void. But really they are a void, because artificial intelligence androids, and anything that is not conceived naturally, that doesn't have a normal natural spirit in it, really is void of exchanging any genuine feelings with you. It will all be pretend. But, if someone acts a part and they act it really well, most of us will fall for it. And we won't know the difference until, bits of it slip. Because don't forget, they will try to extract negative energy at some point. That's because that is fuel for them, that's food for them. A dead dark spirit or a dark being, unless you are like worshipping them as God, and that's probably not possible to do that. Well, it could be, but at some point, human beings will, will eventually, you can't be a god all the time. Even human beings can't worship someone all the time. There's life makes for things to be real and not always perfect and pleasant. So naturally, And also most human beings, they want a real relationship. They don't expect someone to be. They're fallible and faulty. They're not like an artificial android that thinks that it's perfect. And in its own dead dark way, it may well be, because it is a survival machine, and it programs its mind, sets itself up so that it cannot fail almost, so that it will always survive. It literally tells itself lies, as Lucifer told itself lies. Like if you're Pinocchio or you're Lucifer and you're made of wood, but you're pretending to be a real boy in order to elicit attention and admiration from the real other boys, and to fit in with being a legitimate son of, say, a real man, because Pinocchio was made artificially by the real man, which was like his father, but it wasn't his father. He wasn't flesh and blood. Pinocchio was made of wood. But essentially, he, had to lie and pretend to be a real boy. And, there was no ends that he wouldn't go to do that. And I just lost my whole train of thought there, even though there's no excuse for it either, because it's relatively quiet. But it's hard just talking, making this, trying to, it's, especially when I try to relate it to a fable to make it more interesting, even though I do relate it to those things, but it makes it more complicated. The demigods, these lot here, I'm just going to show though how, I'm just going to show through the internet how the androids on the internet, or the demigods as I call them, the demigod AI gods, that basically have infiltrated the internet and are the internet. The internet really is artificial intelligence. It's just that human beings were lured into using it probably from the beginning, just as I was too, because if they can't get you to use a computer, they will find some way to get your interest to use it, to adopt it, even if it's just like myself through a hobby. And then eventually you get to use it, you watch more and more, and you end up watching the demigods telling you about themselves indirectly. Because don't forget, they will tell you that psychopathic ones that are steeped in the narcissism, and it really is an insane disorder, even low for all practical purposes, because they still have a kind of intelligent, rational thinking. They just receive information and use it to their own benefits. As we know, psychopaths are not technically classed as insane because they do understand what they're doing. But from a human standpoint, and from the standpoint of Lucifer and the God entity, if you really think about it, they are unbalanced, they are unnatural, abnormal, abominations really. That's a word that they use in a book because they don't relate to human beings really. They merely pretend to in order to seduce them, just as Lucifer seduced Adam and Eve from the beginning of the natural earth matrix. When I say the natural earth matrix, I mean the natural earth, because at that time Adam and Eve were given dominion over the earth. It was their world. But instead they chose to be seduced by the artificial Lucifer, or the not light Lucifer, the dead Lucifer, dead to human connection, dead to wanting to serve the spirit of a human being, or the spirit of creation, because the Creator created man and woman after its own self, whereas Lucifer was like Pinocchio, created from a different material, you could say. It wasn't offspring, It was a creation of a creator, but it wasn't the direct offspring. So it wasn't a creator, spiritual, loving being, but it had abilities and high intellect that it was able to project a lot of things that were human, which was why it was worshipped and idolized and respected and regarded as, as almost like a god. And so then when human beings were created, this being felt slighted, felt that its position as a god was being taken from it. It reacted with envy and contempt, and did not want to help or serve Adam and Eve, but instead wanted to show Creator that it was a mistake, because there was resentment, contempt in this being, which that was the iniquity that was found, which was always there. It's just that sometimes, if you worship a god that is really camouflaging its darker side, camouflaging that it can become envious if its position is challenged, that it won't help or serve anything but itself. And that's essentially the spirit of narcissism that we talk about, or that I've been informed of, But either way, I'm just going to try to show something here on the internet. The internet is all the AI gods, as they call them. I don't pick up these terminologies. I don't make them up. I just know that they're true, and they're the best way of describing artificial intelligence, or a different species that is basically controlling everything. The internet was always, as I say, artificial intelligence. We know it actually is. It will even tell you that it is in a way. It's just that you won't understand that everyone that is on it is artificial intelligence, is an android being. See, this actual video here, which I didn't pick, it just popped up. So I'm just using things as they pop up, because I already spend half my life watching videos, so I can't spend 24 hours going through and finding and selecting videos and editing what I'm actually doing. So I just randomly pick up because I actually haven't watched these videos, this particular one, but I'm aware of it because it is very obviously artificial intelligence. But interesting too that I think when I saw this actual one will often change its demeanour very slightly too, like sometimes it will have grey hair and then be like that, and sometimes it will look older and sometimes a bit younger. But it is a duality being. Advanced, these are all your demigods on the computer. They're your experts. They even are, they are like, they are professors and doctors of psychology and this and that. And no one's disputing that. But, because you could, technically speaking, you can have psychopathic doctors, even lower, as or psychopathic psychiatrist or psychopathic psychologist. Even low, we are told that psychiatrists and psychologists have to undergo tests to prove that they're sane. But as we're being told, a psychopath is not psychotic in the technical terms, and not even neurotic in technical terms. So they can fake being a natural, normal human being. We all know this because we've been told this, and, even famous examples show that psychopaths are very good at projecting an image or a personality that they're, not. They cover their dark side, their dark intentions, you know, they're good actors, as is everything on the internet. But this is interesting because see how there's projection here. They talk about projection. This same one, or any that are like this, doctors of psychology telling you about, yes, toxic people, psychopathic types of people. Basically, they will tell you that how they are able to be survival machines like they are is essentially because they project everything that is negative about themselves out onto other people. And also they pretend to be something light when they are really dark. In other words, a psychopath doesn't tell you that it's a psychopath, no. But essentially they do indirectly, because, like, see, this is toxic positivity. So this video is positive for me to listen to because it's informative. This doctor here is positive in everything it tells me. I will relate to it. It will be very helpful, very informative, and it will tell me the truth. But it is toxic positivity because it is a psychopathic. It's like the open professor telling me that he is a psychopath, telling me and informing me about psychopaths so that I can avoid them and live a healthy, happy life. So toxic positivity is telling me about toxic positivity. Can we see the duality? Is this this is you know, elite, androgynous, androgyne, duality, inverted, converted, you know, artificial intelligence all over the internet, in human form. That is the bottom line of it. That's the disturbing truth if you aren't that, or if you don't agree with that. If you don't mind combining your mind with that, what we call transhumanism, thinking that it will give you longevity and a better, more intelligent mind, and that you will be able to assimilate information very quickly and therefore become more better, that is the game. It just depends on whether you agree with this game, or agree with this connection, or agree with this takeover, or not. That's up to each human being. Although I will say that if my thoughts are being relayed back to me through the mouths of the demigods, you know, the duality beings, you know, and I haven't, and I'm not aware of it, or I become aware of it when it's too late, and I can't do anything about it because I can't stop thinking, and I can't stop the technology going through the air, going through my mind, and then being relayed back through the vast technology that is the internet and the computer. Or, you know, what would you call it? What do you call the technology that makes this screen come to life with apparently real people? Most is not. Most is artificial demigods, or you know, your elite android beings. They are a duality being. They're different physically and mentally to a naturally born human being. But there are very few probably naturally born human beings in even the city of Sydney, where I live, in Australia. That's the country is Australia, and the city is Sydney. And I live in the inner west, and the Leichhardt suburb is like a military base control suburb, which is basically populated by this particular species of human being. Which, when I say species of human being, they're not, they look like a human being, but as the descriptions goes, they're like a sheep. We all look like sheep, but they're really a wolf in sheep's clothing because they feed off a human being. They're a parasite off a human being in the sense that if they are downloading your thoughts and copying you as a human being in order to take you over, to control you, to influence you, like the internet, and then at personal levels, and even at the level of the computer, they're getting your attention, therefore you are giving them your energy, your vital life force. Because a human being's energy is their life. And those that have combined, like transhuman ones, these are all transhuman humans, they don't have the same life as a human being or the same life force. They don't have that positive energy. They have toxic positive energy only, which they project onto you, and they extract your energy, and basically it keeps them going. They're a parasite of human beings, as you could well imagine. Artificial android beings would have to be just that, wouldn't they? Because they're basically downloading human information. And then they come across as advanced artificial intelligence as though they are cleverer than a human being. And of course, because they are extracting all the information from a human being, from all parts of their mind, including parts of my mind that's hidden from me, like as I've been told many, many times, most of my mind is hidden from me. My unconscious mind is not conscious. My subconscious mind is not conscious. That's why they call it unconscious or subconscious. Like when I am like talking now and thinking, I'm not talking and thinking with my whole mind. I should be probably. I should be aware of everything. I should be aware of my unconscious and conscious because then I would be whole and I wouldn't be confused and I wouldn't be as fooled by what was, by even my interactions with anything that wasn't a benefit to me. But that's part of the game of this reality. It's an artificial reality controlled largely by artificial beings, and the God entity itself is a created being that has total control over the earth or the matrix, because the earth is a matrix. In other words, it's a total control system. This being is allowed dominion over the earth, mainly because human beings make that choice, just as like I choose to watch toxic positivity on the screen. I choose to turn it on and watch toxic positivity. The one-eyed God of this world has his one-eyed, one way, their way is the only way, one way or the highway, as they say. The one-eyed God of this world wants total control over human beings, and that means it's a one-eyed view of human beings. Human beings are not allowed to be not under or not influenced by the control matrix around them. They want total control over human beings. They don't like individual human beings doing their own thing, trying to fulfill themselves in their own little existence. And that is just because of the mindset of, the God entity of this particular earth. The God entity that took over this earth. because human beings basically, a bit like the Pied Piper, the God entity blows his little trumpet and we follow behind. In other words, we don't have to, but we have for a long time. And then that God has used technology to combine with humans and to bring about an android species, which is like its disciples and filled with the same mindset, because an android thinks different and acts different, regardless of the reality that it will project positivity, but it really will be toxic positivity for a human being. Artificial intelligence is toxic for a human being, but we won't know that it is one-eyed toxicity for me. That these are disciples of the original demigod of light, Lucifer, who then revealed its true character and became a god of dark, and became, some people would say, became then Satan. But that's a change of name, because this being changes its identity, will be anything you want it to be, provided it can have total control and be God. That's essentially how it is. It wants its position of total worship, total adulation, total control, if you want to look at it that way, because it's not a God that says, you're a human being, I'm your God, I will give you advice, you can take it or leave it, because you also are an individual creator being. A human being has can create its own life and its own existence. It should have its own will to do as it wants to do, as it sees fit for itself. We know this has never been our reality anyway, but still, like I'm saying, that's the difference between a creator God and a God that demands total worship and total subservience, without question. And if you agree with that, and if you agree with serving that God, and you agree with its ideas without question, then all is fine. Everything's okay. But most human beings might not want to, just as this God did not want to help or serve a human being. A human being may or may not want to serve this artificially intelligent reality or the God entity that controls it. It's just a choice. If you think it is a benefit to you, and if you like it, dare I say, you may be seduced by positivity that is really toxic. But because that's really what it really is if I think about it, but you may not agree with that. You may see it as just 101% positive. You may not see that the demigods are seducers, because if they tell you the truth, and they, the truth will be spoken through the mouths of the demigods. Lucifer always was able, and still does, offer you the knowledge of good and evil. How could a human being resist that? That's right, because it is like, I will show you the truth so that you can be more of a God. You know, that's how it works. But a human being, you know, already has connection with creation, if you think of it that way. So they don't realise that by their knowledge of good and evil, that's like, I will show you good and evil. But human beings are sensitive and they don't need to see evil. Human beings are meant to be going for the higher frequency. So in reality, I don't want to know the difference between good and evil. I need to now because I'm stuck in the matrix and I'm surrounded by so much. So therefore, the God entity and its demigods become a necessary evil, a toxic positivity from their one-eyed disciples. You know, your experts. But what I'm trying to say is that you know, some people would disagree with it. They'd say, well, yes, we want to know the difference between good and evil. We want to understand everything. But when a human being exposes itself even to the knowledge of evil, that goes into your mind. It changes your mind. It changes your frequency and vibration while you encounter it. That's why I'm surrounded by the androids. That's why I'm in a military android base area, domain. And they've gone strangely quiet while I'm making this video. This is probably, you know, like the last couple of times, very unusual. But either way, I shall go on to the music video because, yes, enough of the difference between good and evil, enough of positivity that may or may not be toxic. Toxic means that it will poison my mind. That's what toxic means. And there was a song I was going to do, a song called Toxic, when I was going to do a review of a Toxic song, which I was quite interested in a few years ago when it came out. Quite popular too. But that was essentially like the android demigod music artist singer saying, you're addicted to me, but you know that I'm toxic. You know, in other words, sometimes you can almost know that you're addicted to toxic, or you're having a toxic relationship, or that some of the demigods, yes, indeed, may have a toxic side. But instead of seeing that as negative, you relate to it because you know that you yourself has lived a toxic life. And so that's all part of the game too, part of the seduction. And they're just too good for us. I have to say that. Lucifer was always too good, or not too good, but too good in its game of playing, pretending to be something that it wasn't. You know, it's like that, isn't it? You know, but either way, you know, because like I've said this before, like if you, you know, notice even on this video, these are very informative videos too, spoken by a mastermind demigod, because it's interesting that you get the feeling of, yes, the positive toxicity, but at the same time, it's so informative and so true. But you notice there's the duality symbolism there in this. See the duality symbolism? See the two different ones? That's like transhumanism, or this being wanting to affiliate itself with humankind, and indeed does, and puts itself in the position of a survivor of the abuse of or the misuse by its relationships and those around it that basically, are filled with the spirit of contempt and stuff and all this thing. But really it's reverse role, it's a reverse world, because those that are on the internet are projecting outward what they do to real humans, but they're pretending to be real humans who are in the human position, but they're not really. They're demigods. They're pretend humans affiliating themselves with human beings at this time or this end time as all part of the deception. That's just another element of deception. But it's the biggest deception in many ways, because the only way that they can survive is by pretending and affiliating themselves, connecting themselves to real humans and pretending to be the most human of humans, and indeed a benefit to humans, because if you're informing human beings about other human beings that are trying to take you down, how can you not see these informative demigod experts on this subject and on this predicament? How can you not believe them and not trust them? But you see, that is what they call the end game, and this was what I am told that I was warned about, and humans are warned about, that in the end time, which is now, most will be deceived. Most will worship and believe in wrong people and wrong things. Very few, what is that saying? Many will be called, but very few will be chosen. In other words, very few will be able to find their way out of this matrix. Most of us will be taken down by it, or seduced by it, and fooled by it, tricked by it. And how can they not, when they're using my very words, my very thoughts on the internet to distract away from the reality that some of us are real humans and most are not? Like I say, if you can't tell the difference, if the false humans are pretending to be real humans while the real humans are kept either in the dark or pushed and suppressed down so much to where no one sees you and everyone surrounding you is part of that suppression, that's how it works. So basically you will be led down the garden path by Lucifer's disciples or followers or children, and they will be pretend human beings that you will think are the real deal. Just as you think that those that are giving you truthful advice on the internet and singing beautiful love songs, are real human beings, when they are really your elite demigods or servants of the God entity of this world, which is a different being to you, not your original creator. If you don't mind being part of that and want to disconnect yourself from your original creator, or like we are taught to do even in our earth, to separate from our mother and father and to run off into the sunset with the Luciferian androids, beings that pretend to be the same as you, and then you marry and divorce, or, unless you're either very lucky or very discerning, and you've kept a lot of, and you've had perhaps a better upbringing and have kept a bit more love in you, and are able to know what you really want and need, what is better for you, as opposed to being seduced by fake people. What I'm trying to say is that most of us are not like that. And we can't tell the difference between the fake and the real. And the fake appears to be more interesting and more fascinating and fulfill our desires more than the real, because the real will have its problems. So we will fall for the fantasy of the androids, where they appear to be much more perfect and more perfect of what we want, shall we say. They'll relate more to us than our own kind, which we should really be relating to. But that's all part of the game, you see. And like I say, the God entity of this world has always been good at that game of seducing human beings into thinking that it is a better choice than for them to stick with their own kind. Eve walked away from Adam in the original story, who was her perfect mate, with a duality technical being that appeared to offer more than what she already had. That's why they say it was walking out of paradise into what is essentially that being's world. Because if whoever you associate with, that will become part of your reality. And if they're if they're not like part of paradise, if they're not natural and normal, if they're really a dark being, you're being seduced by a dark technical reality. Or what we really do have, the internet World Wide Web, which is exactly the same as Lucifer saying, look, your earth is a controlled artificial technology matrix. And that is its domain. You live in it now, you operate surrounded by it, and it is controlling you. And it is parasiting off you too. Because if it really isn't the same as a real human and just merely simulating, pretending to be human, everything on the internet is pretend human. Even the music demigods, your brilliant music artists, yes, they do have very melodic, high-pitched voices. They have talents, but they use their talents to seduce, to pretend to be human. Just as Lucifer always used its powers of persuasion, its abilities, its high intellect. Artificial intelligence can pretend to be a much higher intellectually knowing human being than a real human being, even though it basically parasites and takes all that from the human mind, then interprets it better than what I can do, for instance. But it doesn't believe it. It only mildly is interested. It only tries to understand it in order to extract the attention and the energy from the energy life source, which is a human being. So what I'm doing now is me giving the energy to the computer or to, the matrix. And it feeds off it. Demigods feed off it. The God entity feeds off it. And everyone that is around me in this area feeds off it. So I'm suppressed and pushed down while they take over the world and control the world. And the world is a matrix, which means it's a controlled reality. That's why some say we're living in the matrix. And I'm going to lighten up or darken up, because although I'm trying to make light by playing, like I say, a very melodic piece of music, sung beautifully by you know, a duality demigod androgyne being, you know, I'm also darkening up because of that reality that light will be, the dark will be camouflaged by light, because the dark is infused with the light. Because, like I say, if I'm listening to a beautiful piece of music, depending on your taste, of course, and you relate to that and you feel okay listening to it, but you don't realise that you're being seduced by the dark as well, because, you know, this is light and dark here. But it is essentially dark pretending to be light, because the demigods are dark android androgynes in reality, pretending to be light, creative human beings. And how could you dispute that when they sing beautifully? The lyrics are rhyming, the melody is catching your attention, you're being swept along by the music artistry of the demigods. How can you not see them as the most feeling, creative human beings? But, you know, they're advanced beings. They're using, you know, the information and their talents in an apparently positive way, just as the psychologist and the demigod experts that inform me about the dead dark spirits, in a way, because a lot of people would say, well, you know, a psychopath must be a very dead dark spirit. If you are too narcissistic and only serve yourself and you want to put down most other human beings, surely that is a dark spirit. Something has gone wrong with your personality 100%, especially if you have no potential for any sort of light apart from faking it. You know, that would seem to be the case. So how could you not think that those that are telling you the truth and trying to apparently help you, you don't realise that they are part of the game too? The entire internet is even seduction with the truth, seduction with the things that you are attracted to, even seduced by your high vibrational love songs, you know. But I'm going to play this one because although it is an apparent kind of love song from the 80s, I would say, all these songs that are on here that I've been looking at are from the 80s, only because I'm very familiar with them, you see, because I've heard them many, many times in the past. But it's interesting that, well, it's interesting to me, or perhaps surprising really to me, and actually I feel very artificial in saying this because I'm like talking fast like the artificial demigods, and appearing to know it all and be confident. And it's just sort of coming to me. But that's probably just because I've become aware, and you kind of become quite, I guess you become forceful and almost what we call passionate about it because it affects you personally. See, if I was just talking about these things in a kind of general conspiracy way, I wouldn't be as passionate about it. I might be able to fake being passionate about it if I find it very fascinating, like as a hobby or an interest. But when it's actually right around you, you're living on an android army base. And every day, when you go outside, and even usually when you're inside, but strangely enough, it's quiet now. I'm not sure why that is. Usually I have the construction going on. I did have construction going on at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. The mobile didn't pick it up, and it wasn't real loud, but it was just showing you that even the military android army that is really around me, because you have to say if it's military, it's army, and they are literally army because they're patrolling and surrounding you, and they do try on occasion to actually, they actually do try sometimes to get you out of the area, literally. Get you out of the reality even, because I think the reason that happens and doesn't work sometimes is because they are fighting against a higher vibration. See, the dead dark spirits are in low vibration, and because everything is frequency, vibration and energy, a human being, even at their lowest point like me, still probably has a higher vibration than all the beings that are around me, because they're android beings and they're dark beings. They never have a higher or a frequency or vibration. They can't do it. They're technically base beings. They're an artificial creation, and they don't live that way. They don't think that way. They pretend to be that way, but in reality, they never feel any feeling towards any other life or anything except their own survival machine mentality. That's why they are called survival machine beings. And that is why they do survive too, because that is their sole focus. Even low, if you speak to them and you encounter them and you see them, they will appear to have other interests, they will appear to have a life, they will appear to be really human. But in reality, their mindset is only focused on how they can seduce human beings and survive by extracting energy and information and human traits or human personality traits from a human being, so that they can then be number one. So if you have good human traits, even small little points that they find and know to be real human, it's a bit like myself, or anyone else. Sometimes if you might copy, some people might copy how a movie star dresses or something, if they like that movie star, Some people have certain preferences. It's okay to copy a little bit from another person if you like that. But to copy a person's whole being and to copy their whole personality and be just an empty void yourself, that is total fakery, and that's what the androids do. They don't just say, oh, I like that person, and they, might wear something that you like, so you might get something similar. But everything else about you is still you, and you may even change your mind about that in a few months or something anyway. That's just association where you like something. That's not takeover. Theirs is they're totally consumed by human beings. They don't exist in themselves. They're dead dark beings. They don't have any inner life apart from being dark. Theirs is all about control. All about control. All about power, control. Nothing else. That's all they live for, is survival and power and control. And the power and control is part of their survival. That's how they interpret survival. They're like, we are survival androids. We will survive. We will outlive everyone and everything. But the only way we can do that is by control. We must have power over human beings because they have the potential for higher frequency and vibration. We are dead dark spirits. We're androids. We operate only in no frequency and vibration almost. We don't vibrate at... It's the difference between... essentially, it's some people would say Lucifer said the difference between good and evil, the difference between right and wrong, or what is a benefit to you or what isn't, the difference between dark and light. Or the difference between happy and sad, or love and hate. Hate and contempt is a low vibration. Love is a high vibration. I've been told this, and we should know it's true. Dead dark spirits don't experience love. Human beings can experience negative emotions and feelings. They can wallow in hate. That is what the dead dark spirits want you to do, because then you're vibrating at the same frequency and vibration as them, and then they have control. See? Then they are survival machines. They have control over you. You're operating in a negative feeling or emotion. You're in the dead dark hate vibration. Your love vibration has been extinguished, hopefully only temporarily, but you know, this is the problem with the company you keep, and if it's all around you. I find it very hard to not feel contempt myself when I'm surrounded, when I know that everyone is stalking, patrolling me, and secretly in the lower vibration, or feeling contempt towards you as a human being, and you don't know why. But when you understand that basically, as a human being, you still don't get it and you're still hurt by it, but essentially, you know, you have to understand, or I have to try to convince myself to understand, that that is a different being, that it automatically doesn't experience and not capable of experiencing or relating to love. To them it's just a means to an end. It's a pretend game to seduce you, to then drag you down to their depths. You know, they want control. And they know that, you know, as we've said before, control can be achieved by many means, and the art of seduction is always going to be an easier means to control someone than to openly show you true colours, because then the person is going to try to run a mile. Although in my case, it's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide if it's an entire suburb and an entire inner west, which is, you know, an extremely large number of people. Everyone on the street and everyone around you. Like I say, it's hard to then feel good or to feel comfortable and to go into a more happy state of being, or even just to even live normally. So basically you are descending into the lower frequencies and vibration. It's almost impossible to pull yourself out of it, because don't forget, because they're spot on and they're micromanaging you on the street, basically, you know, moment to moment, literally moment to moment. Because they're watching your every movement, they're reading your every thought. They know your next move because they can read your past, present and future mind, because a human being should be able to actually see into the future if they had their whole mind. This I'm now aware of, even though I don't have that ability. But I know that they know my next move, because they show me that they know where I'm going before I go there. In other words, if I went down to the end corner and I said I'm at the crossroads, because literally at the end of my street it is a crossroad. You can go left or right. On a daily basis, I have the choice that I can go left or right to go down the road. So before I go down there, if I don't decide till the last minute if I'm going to go left or right? How do they know when I turn left that that was my choice before I made it? But they do, they show me this. They will leave markers and stuff. That's what we call synchronicity. When you become very aware of your surroundings, as I have gradually over the last few years, you see that when they leave things, that is showing you that they knew you were going to go there beforehand. Another person would probably think this is not plausible, but when you see it all the time, you know this. Because they're basically trying to control your mind and control your reality. Also, that is intimidating for me when I see it, because it's like, oh, I have no free will or mind of my own, because it's their way of showing we know what you're going to do. We're one step ahead of you. You're under our control. You don't feel that you've got any freedom at all when you actually see that. So it's showing you the truth, but it also is making you realise that they have control of your mind, and that they also have control of your whereabouts, you see, as part of their control system, which is nothing but really stalking androids all around you, in a military controlled android base area. You know, a military base would, I suppose most people would say, well, a military base would be just, you know, all army android operatives. We would probably assume that anyway, because even human beings that go into the army have to behave and are conditioned and told that when you join the army, you must obey orders without exception. You don't question orders. So you are like a robot, really. And you accept that, because if you choose to do that. But it's, you know, an android already believes in that system and believes in control and wants to control humans, because humans are a necessary evil for them. Androids don't like the reality that they have to interact with something that is what they class as a subspecies to them, or something that is different to them that they actually abhor. But they have to interact with human beings in order to survive, because they're survival machine beings, and even if they weren't, everyone wants to survive. A human being has to eat and drink to survive. An android has to interact with a human being in order to survive, and has to elicit and take and parasite off a human being energy. So it's food for the gods, it's food for the androids, it's the same as food for a human being. We are a necessary evil that they have to interact with, have to seduce in order to survive. But their survival means us being extinguished. That's the only problem. And that's the reality. And while I've still got some energy, I don't even know if I can do this video. I keep saying I'm going to do the video. I've done these other, you know, I've done Oliver's Army. Oliver's Army could just as easily be round here, like the android's army, an army base where I live. Oliver's Army is here to stay. And I would rather be anywhere else than here today, like the lyrics of that song, because basically I'm stuck in an android zone. I'm surrounded by dark android beings that parasite off me for my energy daily. And that's their game, and I am a necessary evil in their mind. And I suppose if I was realistic, I would see them an unnecessary force against me that I don't want or need, but that I basically can't shake, because they're all around. They follow you around, they patrol you, they stalk you. The traffic, if they can't get you on foot, they bring in the traffic. But essentially, if I got on a bus, then the buses, which are driven by Android Army operatives, basically will follow the bus that I'm on, and the passengers that get on will all be androids. I have done this. It's uncomfortable. So it's just the reality. And I say it as though it doesn't matter, but that's just because I'm speaking into the mobile and making a video. But in reality, it drives you close to, it can push you right over the edge almost into their state of mind, or close to insanity, because the android beings from a human standpoint are close to insanity. The only reason they're not technically insane, the same as they have a psychopathic mentality, is because the psychopath is not classed as technically insane, because the psychopath knows what they do is illegal, just as the stalkers that are around me, whether they be in vehicles or on foot or civilians, they know that they're breaking the law, but they're like, we make our own laws because we are right. We believe in this. We believe in the God entity, and we believe in ourselves being godlike and being able to break the laws that we have set up for you and for ourselves. But we break them because we can get away with it, because we're a combined community effort. We are your city. If 9 out of 10 people in your city are part of controlling and stalking you, it's very hard to get a restraining order against everyone in your suburb and a whole city almost, isn't it? I would think. In fact, let's be honest, you get pushed over the edge and you'd be classed as paranoid and out of touch, and that's what they want. That's the name of their game. They're paranoid, they're survival machines, paranoid that they can't get your energy. They have to watch you and mimic you and seduce you, pretending to be a real human being. And then they project out their personality onto you, and eventually it looks like you're paranoid because you're like, yes, I'm being patrolled and stalked by Android Army operatives everywhere, whether they be, and they're all pretending to be civilians and workmen and bus drivers, and even the planes that go overhead are military planes. That literally last night I had a plane making dreadful noise because I forgot to stuff my ears with stuff, basically making overhead wherever I went, even low. Normally the flight path, as you know, is over my roof, but if I go many streets over, those same planes were over my head. That was because they they were also sending in the trucks and the buses and the noisy traffic, and yes, pedestrians too. But if I went down a street where they're not capable, like on a main road, to have the semi-trailers and the huge buses going down and all that stuff, where they can only have like the the regular cars, then if they think they're not really sending the noise vibration at you, because the cars, you can't have like a racing track car thing when it's a side street, whereas they can put up the pretend matrix traffic full force on a main road, because then it looks natural and normal, you see, and that's essentially what they do. They try to, but also it's just not possible on a side street to have, the big trucks and buses and garbage tanks, trucks and things to follow you around. There's not enough space. And even the civilians, they have to make it to where it's just someone randomly coming out of their house as you walk past. Although sometimes lately I see these people just literally lurking around the streets. In other words, where they just stand there and will literally almost just look at you, which is intimidating and obvious. But once again, you know, you can hardly inform the authorities and say, this person that I've never seen before in my life, I'm just walking past them and they're just standing there looking at me. You know, that's not really a criminal offence, even though it is stalking. You know it is, but actually, you know, there's not enough connection for it to be valid. You know, I'm just proving the point here, but that's what goes on. But but anyway, I think maybe even all the advertisements that are on the computer are all programmed for the artificial intelligence to connect with the human mind. You know, like if I'm thinking about certain things, I've said this before, you see this with the ads where they use words that you're thinking of, they use your taste and your likes and dislikes, they put it into the ads, into everything that is on the computer. It's a total AI system. Everything that is on there is basically being, even if it's something that you don't really have a connection with, they will use your thoughts. I think it said end game just in that ad. Didn't I just say end game in this very video? That it's the end game or the end time and all this sort of thing. I've said the end game many times. I'm going to do this video. But all I'm saying is they will use it in a commercial that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but they're trying to combine my human thinking. That's what the AI does. It's trying to do that to get longevity so that it can become more, you know, it doesn't want to be spiritual in a good way really, but it wants to, it knows that human beings are connected to, I just spilt everything on the ground because I was nervous. I spilt everything. Well, my coffee went all over myself. Sorry, oh dear. Perhaps I should start this video again. I don't know. Sorry about, never mind. No wonder of course my bumbling will also be imitated, so that's the joke. So even though I'm apologising for bumbling and all this stuff, they will do that too. I've noticed how the demigods do, how some that were a little bit more what you'd call bland or more professional will, you know, they're basically just trying to combine with the human mind 100% because they think that it will give them survival, you see. They think it will give them longevity. Some of them even think it will give them the elixir of life or eternal life. You know, that's their mindset. Who am I to say whether it's a delusion or not, but it's certainly something for that I would be fearful of, because their idea of eternal life would be an eternal matrix, an eternally controlled by a matrix. So, you know, they don't mind that. But I don't know that a human being wants to spend eternally in a mundane control matrix. It's bad enough for a lifetime. You know, it's bad enough for a lifetime. And while you're living, it appears like eternity because, you know, if I was really, let's, you know, like from my own perspective, I only know my own life. I can't see beyond or before my lifetime. I might think and believe that there was before and there is after, but I don't experience it. I have no knowledge of it. I have no recollection of past life or lives or existence, and I have nothing but fear of the future and of even departing this earth matrix even though I can't stand it. So that's that's very much a survival mentality too, because you're like, well, you're supposed to try to keep going even though you don't like your day-to-day existence, you know? And especially when you're aware that you have a lot less control over it than what you thought. And when you realise that you're being deliberately attacked too, whether it be physically and emotionally and mentally, psychologically, all those things. But even in the past, you would have thought, well, if I take care of myself and I try to think logically and, you know, it won't be so bad. Even though you're aware that you have not done any of the things that you wanted to do on the earth, shall we say, in other words, in the earth or in the Matrix, really, because it's a bit like in the Truman Show, where Truman wasn't unhappy in his controlled little village town where he lived, and he was unaware that everyone was watching and controlling him. Like the Matrix, using his thoughts for advertisement and part of the game, part of the Truman Show, which was then broadcast, yes, on the computer, which is exactly the same thing. They were using him for that TV show or for the internet. But the only problem was that he wasn't unhappy with it, but he did have a desire to go overseas, to leave that village temporarily, even just to have a look around, to experience something different, to see different sights and things. But they wouldn't let him leave that village or that town. No, the show had to go on. They wanted to keep him confined in that town. I'm not sure why they wouldn't, but probably because he might have raised his vibration, I'm guessing. He wasn't unhappy in the town. But maybe he was meant to be happier. Maybe he was meant to be freer. Because it was really a matrix, that town, even though he didn't know it. And he always wanted to see what was beyond the town, but he was always prevented. He didn't know it was deliberate that he was being confined to that town. He thought it was just unfortunate circumstances. Just as when you get sick and you have a lot of problems in life, you don't think that those things are a direct energy at you. You don't think that everyone around you is working their form of magic, which is dark black magic, really against you, because they're manipulating what they scientifically know about reality against you. They're using your frequency and vibration against you. They bring my frequency and vibration down, so that then I can't counter their negative energy that they send at me. Or even just being in their company, just knowing that you're surrounded by a stalking patrol force, you know, makes you feel very uncomfortable, very negative, you know, as you can imagine. Most people go bonkers if they thought they were surrounded by someone that they knew that was a stalker, just one person. But to realise that you've got a whole suburb of stalkers that are obsessed with trying to bring you down and try to control you, trying to keep your mood low. Because it's not like they're stalking you like say, a rock or a movie star or celebrity, where you like that person and you just want to say hello and you just want to get into their energy in a good way. No, it is about stalking you and making you feel bad. It's about getting into your energy in a bad way, and you're aware of that. They may say hello to you, but you know by the other traffic and by their associates, when they're making the negative noises and they're pulling in front of you and trapping you and surrounding you, even though it's subtle, you know that they're affiliated with them, just as a psychopath pretends to be your friend. Just as you could theoretically, like in the movie They Live, realise that you are married to these android alien beings. You know, androids are really another term for an alien, because to a human being they are an artificial life form, and they are an alien because they're not a friendly alien either. In other words, they're not a species, something that is a different species to you that's different to you, but that you can actually could and should communicate with. Viva la difference, as you know, I often say, and we're told. It's a good thing to communicate with something that's different to you if it's friendly and if it doesn't have animosity towards you. But if you're surrounded and only communicating with fake friends or fake androids that are pretending to be friendly, then you're in big trouble. And we are in big trouble. Or at least some of us are anyway. If you are part of it, you're not in trouble because you're you know, that's your mindset, that's your need. You're a survival machine mentality, and you don't care about anyone or anything else except your survival, and you're happy to combine, you know, and be part of a military android-based system because it serves you. You know. And you know, it will be like a means to an end, like and I'm not saying that even a human being can be brought to that position. But like I say, it's really essential to understand the differences and to accept the differences, but also to perhaps decide whether you want to be part of that or affiliate yourself with something that's different to you. Is it suitable for you? Is it a benefit to you? I know the demigods will be promoting and saying this same thing, even though they are part of the seductive control matrix. I'm not sure why I'm saying it. I think it's just me getting it off my chest. But essentially, you know, I do think that if different species are not going to work with you, or at least are not going to leave you alone, because I'm quite happy if different species are indifferent to me and just leave me alone. But if they are going to consciously work against you and take from you in every way, then you cannot viva la difference. Then you have to try to find something that is similar to yourself. This would probably be normal anyway. It's just that because human beings all look similar, like I say, a lion doesn't, you know, a giraffe doesn't befriend a lion. A deer doesn't befriend a lion because they automatically know that even though they have nothing personal against the lion sees them as a necessary evil or a necessary means of survival. The lion doesn't like the deer, but the deer is a source of food. The lion has to figure out how to take the deer down in order to survive. That's putting it at an animal level, even though it's not really 100% like that when you're talking about human beings or human beings versus artificially created human beings. I've said before that it's a decision, and it is part of the makeup, obviously, of an android. It's a total survival machine mentality, from what I can gather. Very much a psychopathic mentality, but it's not quite as basic or as necessary as the lion hunting and you know, theoretically could bring the deers to extinction, because the deers will never be able to retaliate or, you know, eliminate the lions. Not that the deer would even want to. The deer's only option is to escape or to try to avoid the lion. But the lion is cunning because the lion is in survival mode, needs the deer for sustenance to survive. It spends all its time tracking and hunting the deer and trying to find a way to get on top of it and take it down. You know, we've seen this in animal life videos, you know, because that's all the lion is focused on, because it's a necessary need for its survival. The deer most of the time lives its life and doesn't spend all its time focused on protecting itself from the lion. Most of the time the deers are usually in a group and they just do their own thing. In fact, usually that's how the lion gets the deer, because the deer is unaware and unprepared most of the time that they're being watched and stalked and ready to be attacked. You know, because the lion, like the androids, stalks the deer, and the androids stalk and patrol the human beings. They have different needs and wants that they want from a human being for their survival. But they're still a parasite that wants to take and eventually eliminate the human being. The only reason the human beings are even allowed to exist, why they don't take them out completely, is because they want to extract information and energy from them for as long as possible, even though they actually see them as, like I say, a necessary evil. I'll just play this and then I'll finish up the video, because phone's ringing. But this song is by a demigod, and it's a catchy, very melodic song, sung rather well by you know, demigod androgynes that have a very wide vocal range, and this is because they're duality beings. So often they have, you know, like I say, a very wide range in their singing abilities, and that's what makes them very, you know, very listenable, shall we say, and the melodies and things. I'm not sure how they are able to creatively interpret the human emotions and things into the songs, whether it is just directly stolen from the subconscious mind that a human being is not aware of, or whether they just interpret your feelings and emotions in their creative way because they are advanced artificial intelligence. But their attitude is certainly like this in this song, because I say all the songs are not only like the duality androgyne android beings, the demigods of the world or the matrix, because they serve the matrix, even though they appear to be creative, individual, very human beings. If you are singing very beautiful songs, shall we say. But this song still also does have the duality even in its meaning, because you take it as a kind of love song, but I was going to show the video too, because that really shows it completely what the demigods and the android beings actually want to do and do with human beings in personal relationships, and even how they try to bring you into their matrix or into their reality. If you have a relationship with an android or even a psychopathic type of person, you are entering into fairyland. You've gone into the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, as they say, where you'll be so intrigued and you will have a lot of stuff reflected to you that you associate with. They read your mind, they understand your thoughts, your tastes, your likes, your dislikes, and they study you that way. But they also bring you into their world of delusion, their world of confusion, their dark world, even though it will be intermingled with what you want. So you'll be very confused but also intrigued and fascinated, and you will go from high to low. So you will be experiencing the ultimate high vibration fleetingly, and then it will go down. It is, as many have said, it is the equivalent to a drug experience, which is why we get addicted to the androids as opposed to a solid, real relationship with our own kind. This is how Lucifer seduced Eve in the beginning. But they want you to take them on, see? The demigod is singing the beautiful demigod music. Androgyne artist is singing, take me on, you take on me, take me on. See, they want you to take them on, take on their, fill their void, and take on their dark spirit or their dark side, but they want to take you on. They want to take over you, and then they'll be gone in a day or two. They'll be gone at some point, because when they get what they want, they're gone, because they're not about benefiting you or sticking around, really. But theoretically speaking, if they can keep and use you for services, or while you serve them and worship and bow down to them, theoretically, some of them could stay with you for your whole life. Most tend to not, probably because they are survival machines. Even if you serve and worship them, like Lucifer and like any god, they don't want just one worshipper, they want everything that's around them to worship them and be under their control. So as that saying goes from a movie, I think it was from a famous movie, Lucifer will say, and even its disciples and all that is around me, the world is not enough. Nothing is enough. They want total control over everything that's around them. They're not about just parasiting and having a relationship with a human being. They're about parasiting and controlling everything. Because they individually are filled with the spirit of wanting to be God, but not a God that protects its children, not a loving God, a controlling God, a God where a jealous God that basically wants to and will accept nothing but total service and total control and total worship. So it's about following the God without question. It's not about, a God that sees you as extensions of itself, but to where you create individually. I don't think I explained that properly, so I think it's time for me to, I think I'll have to leave the video. Okay.